Tonight on News 5 Live, former PUP Senator Eamon Courtney lashes out at PM Barrow, calling his reply to the leader of the opposition personal and low. John Briceño wrote to the PM threatening legal action on the write-off of Joshua Perdomo's loan. Months after it continues to fester, the Perdomo family is said to be making arrangements to settle the loan. 2 years following the Senate's investigation into the Auditor General's reports on immigration, a report is still not likely anytime soon. The report is yet to be completed. No money for the dying citrus industry, says Minister Godwin Hulse, and we head to the Supreme Court to meet the newest member of the legal profession. Details of these stories and more coming up in tonight's newscast. Good evening. Welcome to News 5 Live for Friday, October 18th. I am Charlie Hutchinson. A lengthy two-page diatribe was released late on Thursday evening in which Prime Minister Dean Barrow took a number of swipes at opposition leader John Briceño in response to a letter written on October 15th in which he threatens court action on the write-off to Joshua Perdomo. The PM's two-page rejoinder released through the government press office is seen as unflattering for the office of the PM. While he went to great pains to explain a cabinet decision to write off a $40,000 debt left behind by Joshua Perdomo, the tone of the letter is seen to be equally tactless. Barrow tells Briceño that his letter was, quote, weaponization of falsehoods, unsustainable conclusions, and downright dishonest, unquote. In his missive, Barrow calls the letter by Briceño as a crass and opportunistic screed designed to score points off the public outrage that followed the discovery that Joshua Perdomo is the son of the cabinet secretary. This morning, former PUP Senator Eamon Courtney, who is also the party's legal counsel, weighed in on the letter as well as measures being taken by the opposition to have the debt collected via the court process.
To be quite honest, I was surprised, but I guess I should not be surprised. The letter was unbecoming for a prime minister. The letter was personal, low, unnecessarily caustic, but I guess we should expect that from him when he's confronted with truths and when someone speaks truth to his power. The fact is that he, as the Minister of Finance, has an obligation to collect that money. And as the leader of the opposition says, he is in breach of his duty and responsibility to all Belizeans. From a purely moral perspective, there are hundreds, perhaps thousands of Belizean students and others who are paying back loans and honoring their obligation to the government of Belize. Joshua Perdomo, only because of his name, his family connection, and his political protection provided by the Prime Minister and his cabinet, is being given special treatment. The party leader has said very clearly, and he has instructed it, that we're going to commence a legal action to have this all set aside. The fact of the matter is that write-off by the National Assembly, where no one has attempted to collect it from Mr. Perdomo, is wrong. The Prime Minister in his letter doesn't say anything about attempting to collect it. What efforts were made? They want us to believe that they have made efforts. They have made none. It is protection that they're giving to Mr. Perdomo. What about the surety, who is right here, not paid? What about the decency of the Perdomo family, his father, who is enjoying a very high-paying job in Belize and doesn't care that his son is being exempted from paying back $40,000, which he solemnly swore to do. This type of rot and corruption must come to an end, and the People's United Party is going to bring a claim to have this declared unlawful and to compel Mr. Perdomo to honor his obligation, and if he doesn't do it, then his surety will have to do it. Like everybody else who is dragged before the courts, when they fail to uphold their obligation, there should be no exemption for politically connected persons like Joshua Perdomo.
The Perdomo loan write-off is not going to go away anytime soon. Today, UDP Senator for Government Business Godwin Holtz says that the $40,000 loan does not mean it is uncollectible. Perdomo is employed at the Southwestern Institute of Forensic Science, which is located in Dallas, Texas. He was to return to Belize on a 3-year bond after being granted study leave to attain a master's degree in forensic genetics at the University of North Texas. The government decided to write off the loan because the PM said Perdomo could not be located. Holtz was asked to comment on the matter. He contributed a long and confounded response.
Are you able to confirm that the Joshua Perdomo loan has been officially written off, that the documents have been signed and it's done?
I don't know about a loan, I don't know about write-off, and I don't know about documents. Let me tell you what I know. I was told in cabinet and by all the experts that Joshua Perdomo was paid 80% of his salary while he went to study. That happens to a lot of people. Lot of people. The normal thing is when the person returns, they don't pay it back. It's not like a loan they pay back. They continue to work and they get their salary and even get increments because they're no better trained. So that is the situation. I can speak for the cabinet of Belize that I sit in, and from I have been sitting in the cabinet of Belize, this issue never, ever, ever, ever came up. And there was no detailed discussion on Mr. Perdomo, etc., etc. And as far as I'm concerned, even within my ministry, I would not have known that. That would have been the accounting officer and the other technical people who would have been dealing with those matters.
So it didn't go to cabinet, you're saying?
No. The right half, when the right half came, those things are discussed, the right half motion, but the right half motion is already in chain. There's nothing you could do to turn that back. And if you wanted to say it was a special thing, then what government could have done was pull back the right half motion so the public would not have known and just leave it there. They didn't. When it came from whatever ministry it came from, the cabinet just left it there. But I'm saying during the process of owing the money, it was never brought to cabinet or discussed that, oh, this is here and Mr. Perdomo's son owes and we should crow for. None of that came up. So I, as a minister, would never have known that, and I don't think any of my other colleagues.
Should the Ministry of National Security have gone after the guarantor?
I would have thought so. Yes, I would have thought so. You try to collect any money out of the government, I can't answer for them.
House reiterated the government's position that the loan is 6 years statute barred. According to him, Cabinet sticks to the recommendation from the Attorney General. But Holtz did let out that the Perdomo family is making arrangements to settle the unpopular debt.
I don't get into the argument whether 6 years or 12 years is a statute bar. The Attorney General says it's 6. And so for the cabinet it's 6. So on the books of 6 years, and not having come to the notice of the cabinet or anybody, nothing ever came in that period of time. So, oh, we have these things outstanding. So it was sprung on us. Well, this is there. And so because it's statute bar, we take it off the books. It doesn't mean that he's forgiven. It doesn't mean that it is uncollectible. It means it's off the books. And there's all the pressure to repay it. And I understand some arrangements are being made by his family. I'll leave it at that stage. But I also want to reiterate that maybe it is time we dig up all them people who are gone and never pay and come back and make all of them get in the same boat too. Because, I mean, it would only be fair.
Some people are arguing that other students' loans should be written off in like manner, and I think there's a petition going around to that regard.
Yes, but when Mr. Perdomo pays back his, then we'll say everybody pay back theirs too. We have to keep it equal. We are guided by the Ministry of the Attorney General. They are the government's advisors, man. And if they say it's 6, it's 6. As well as
we could find out
from
no
Wells.
Attorney General, let us know what is the truth now that this is being alleged.
No man. The Ministry of the Attorney General defends governments in every case, advises government in every legal case, and that is the structure.
This is a new development.
What new development? They told us it's 6 years and it's statute bar. We stand by that. I won't get in beyond that.
It has been almost 2 years since a series of public hearings were conducted by the Senate's Special Select Committee into the findings of the Auditor General's Special Audit Report of the Immigration and Nationality Department. That document chronicled the goings-on, including various procedural irregularities within the department during the period 2011 to 2013 and the resulting testimonies made for fiery exchanges during the sessions. But a formal report from the chair of the Senate's Special Select Committee is yet to be tendered despite the time that has elapsed since the hearings concluded. So, are the sheaves of documents simply languishing in an office somewhere? This afternoon, Senator Aldo Salazar sat down with the media to provide an update on the pending report. While work has commenced on the document, it is nowhere near completion. Suffice to say that it will be finished in time for the 2020 general elections.
We've gotten through the stage of the compilation of information, which took a lot of time. We've gotten to the point of that we have all the documentation, and so I think it would have been in maybe April of this year that I would have started in earnest to work on drafting the report. So we have been 2 years at least yet. Well, not 2 years yet, but we're coming up on 2 years. But it's a significant amount of time, and I understand the concern. But I can only say that I am working on it. On the last occasion, I did give a timeline, which I was unable to keep. And I must apologize for that. The exigencies of my professional life as well as personal life and so on have not allowed me to complete it. That's not to say that it won't be completed, or it's not an excuse, but that is reality, and I am working on it. That's all I can say.
So just put into perspective the volume of work that they committed, did, the amount of hours spent in the testimonies and all of that, they putting that stuff into text.
Right. Well, it's the testimony is, I would estimate it at maybe about 200 or so hours or more, and then after that there's not only the testimony, but there's the deliberation, the meetings and so on of the committee. So it's, I would say, about 300 hours. That's not including personal time, reading through the volumes, as I showed you the stack of papers that have taken up residence on my couch here in my office, and it's a significant amount, and that's not even half.
In the absence of what many expected to be a timely report, there has been talk that completion and presentation of that document is deliberately being stalled for political reasons. While those sentiments have been voiced elsewhere in the media, Senator Salazar says the most salacious pieces of evidence have been ventilated during the hearings, making the final report a somewhat unexciting affair.
Notwithstanding the voluminous task you have at hand, what would you say to anyone in the public who may have an impression that this is being intentionally dragged out for political purposes, considering the fact that there is an election year next year and all these years have elapsed without there being something substantial to give back as a result of the special hearings?
I understand. I've heard that, and I've heard some opposition personalities, when they get on the media, have made the very point. I would dismiss that out of hand as nonsense. And by nonsense, I mean it makes absolutely no sense. Because we've had the hearings. Everything that came out, everything that was supposed to come out, all of the drama, whatever would have been embarrassing to our government has come out in those hearings. There's nothing, we weren't in the back taking any juicy piece of evidence, so the drama is done. So for those people who are expecting drama, I must say that the report is going to be very boring, because we've heard that in the public hearings. I don't want to give a timeline, but what I can say is that this has consumed hours and hours and hours and hours of my time in Bemopan, driving to and from Bemopan, reading those documents, in an immense amount of time. I want to get it done. It's not that I don't want to get it done, and it will get done. But it has to be done in accordance with the standard to which I am going to be satisfied.
39-year-old Jose Gilberto Gallegos is behind bars for counterfeit U.S. dollars. The Mexican national was busted at the Philip Golson International Airport on October 10th with $40,800 in counterfeit U.S. currency and appeared this week in court for arraignment before Senior Magistrate Aretha Ford, and was read 3 counts of possession of counterfeit currency. According to police, Gallegos was in possession of 408 fake $100 bills with varying serial numbers. Gallegos, who was represented by attorney Ronel Gonzalez, was busted along with 2 Brazilian nationals. Those 2 persons, however, were returned home on a refused leave to land order. The media asked Minister of Immigration Godwin Holtz about the difference in treatment.
I can't answer that, I don't know. And I won't attempt an answer, I don't know. As you know, the department is under the functional management of Minister Williams. As a substantive minister, I'm briefed that this happened, but I don't have the details of what happened, more than the fact that they were caught with this, whatever wad of monies they had. And that was the situation.
Would that be the normal procedure though?
To a certain extent, yes, I understand.
Deborah Baptist Estrada is moving up to replace Diana Locke as the Director of Immigration. Estrada is being promoted from her post of Deputy Director of Nationality and Passport Department. Locke is now retiring after long years as a public officer with spectacular service in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Public Service and Immigration. Estrada has been working in the public service for about 20 years and has been recognized by the U.S. with the Secretary of State's International Women of Courage Award. Reports inside the department, however, suggest that the staff is not happy about her promotion. Minister for Immigration Godwin Holt says that Estrada enjoys his support and is acting until her substantive post is confirmed by the Public Service Commission. During the interview, Holt spoke of a meeting he had with the U.S. Chargé of Affairs, Keith Gills, following Estrada's appointment. It is suggested that Gills summoned Holt to speak on immigration matters, including Estrada's appointment. Holt put the record straight, saying that neither the U.S. Chargé d'Affaires nor President Trump can summon him, and the U.S. will not interfere with Cabinet's decision to promote Estrada.
She is by far very well qualified and has had tremendous experience in immigration across all the various departments. So I think she's eminently qualified to hold this post. And of course it is going to be an acting appointment until some confirmation. That is how it is done in the public service. So she will take over as the acting director of immigration temporarily until appointment is either confirmed or otherwise.
Does she fulfill all paper requirements? I'm sure there's a list of requirements. You have the education, the experience, etc., because that could be a challenge or could be the reason that people cite to say, okay, she can't because legally she doesn't fit the criteria.
Remember, we said she's acting appointment, you know. Acting appointment. An acting appointment.
Until
well, you know,
until
we did
they
have
bachelors until
well, we don't know. We don't want to go there, but we remember that for a long time Maria Marin acted as well in immigration, and then eventually she got confirmed as director for refugee.
But what does it say to people who have actually also grown in immigration, who are being bypassed, who may have the experience as well? You're saying that she's the most qualified and pertinent person to put.
She's not, nobody's being bypassed, man. She is up there in the ranks of all the other officers and consequently very capable of holding the job.
This isn't the result of any pressure from the US because it's being alleged that other people who are more senior cannot take the job because they can't even travel to the US.
Well, let me tell you something. Yesterday I met with the Chargé, Mr. Keith Gilges, and the first thing I said to him is, this is a courtesy call because you have no authority, and I am sure you are not trying to suggest that you have to suggest to our government who to put at the top. So we are telling you that this is a cabinet decision and this is going to happen, and we trust you respect it, and that was that.
What then would the Chargé d'Affaires of the US want to speak to the Minister of Immigration about to be calling you into a meeting?
He didn't call me into a meeting. Please, could never call me. Nobody, not President Trump, nobody could call me into a meeting. I say that publicly and please put it up there.
Yes.
Only 3 people could summon me. Make I explain it to you. Majesty the Queen, Governor General Belize, and Prime Minister Belize. Not another living human being can summon me and
But
won't.
why was he interested in speaking?
No, I just wanted to
it?
speak about various things concerning immigration. America is always concerned, and as I said to them too, I am concerned about your policies which you can't get straight. And when you get your policies straight, maybe we'll copy you. You can quote me.
Coming up, the impact of citrus greening on the decline of the industry. And the Minister of Agriculture says there is no money for citrus. This week, we have been reporting on the crisis in the citrus industry and the ramifications to the growers and the economy. One of the factors that have contributed to the decline in the industry is citrus greening, a disease that has caused tremendous impact on the quality of fruits, size, and the overall production. With all its woes and in a state of insolvency, can the industry rebound? News 5's Isani Cayetano looks for answers.
The fragile state of the citrus industry, considering its financial dilemma, is being made worse by a vector-transmitted pathogen which causes the citrus greening disease. HLB, as it is commonly known, is a chronic plague affecting citrus crops. It remains the biggest hurdle for all stakeholders to cross, including CPBL, the processor of citrus juices and concentrates.
The major challenge with us right now with the industry on a whole is the aspect of disease, and of course the HLB particularly, that I would say. It's never a disease that was brought on by any member or any grower. It's just a phenomenon that we have to deal with. The prospects of these HLB tolerant varieties to me is something very good, and I think it holds out a lot of hope for the industry. And hence, I think one of the focus that we have to continue to look at clearly is how we execute that and get these trees into the ground, how we get growers buy-in, that you know, because citrus is a big investment for a lot of people, and it's long-term.
Whereas Citrus Products of Belize Limited is doing its part by picking up the slack for the cash-strapped CGA and offering extension services to address the issue of citrus greening, longtime grower Anthony Chanona encourages the company to do more in the interest of saving the industry.
CPBL needs to get out in the field. They need to get from behind those air-conditioned rooms, come out here. We're in this boat together. When it sinks, we all go down. I mentioned to the Prime Minister, we need to know that CPBL will be there when the industry replants, because we are replanting. We're resilient. But if that factory is not there, the economic pillar of agriculture that citrus is and its contribution is going to have an effect that will be felt across this nation. We can't afford that, Isani.
In accepting its specific function and the importance of conquering the disease, CPBL also admits that the current situation that has befallen the Citrus Growers Association does in fact divert the company from focusing on its priority areas, which includes production.
If we all continue to play our role, this current challenge at the HLB disease, I think we'll be able to overcome it with the vigilance, of course, and the participation of everybody. But and so everybody has to pull their role. And your question before was quite right. When you have a group or a body not doing it, then it does hold us down.
Chanona, who is passionate about the citrus industry, speaks candidly about the economic impact of the decrease in production and how bottom lines and livelihoods are adversely affected.
I think I've earned the right to speak my heart. I will venture on to say that on a completely different footing, the CPBL model has not adjusted to the reality that you just described. They have an organizational structure of 2 factories and X amount of staff to process 7-8 million boxes. Well, do the math. If you're doing 2.2 million with all those infrastructure in place, it's hard to make a profit. And we have 5 more years to wait before production comes in. Unfortunately, over 50% of the young trees we planted 3 years ago have contacted HLB. So the production is not going to be 100%. It's 50% of what we planted.
To stand a fighting chance at defeating HLB and recovering from its scourge, the Citrus Growers Association and its perceived rival, Belize Citrus Mutual, need to lay down their arms and work together in the best interest of the industry.
We need to reunite this industry. What is separating us? Is it bigger than the industry? I would say no. And the 250 farmers that you spoke about need us to get our act together.
Reporting for News 5, I am Isani Cayetano.
Since we had caught up with Minister of Agriculture Godwin Hulse, we asked him about meetings have been held with representatives of the CGA. On Friday, Holtz, along with his CEO, the Prime Minister, and the Financial Secretary, held talks with the CGA to discuss 8 concessions that can lift the industry from its current malaise. Holtz made it quite clear today that the government will not be injecting capital in the CGA.
As far as I understand it, the large citrus mutual people don't have any major issues. The small citrus people are the people with the issues, but their issues stem from the fact that their association is in dire straits. I mean, CGA was a lot of money. It's on the verge of bankruptcy, if not already bankrupt, and it needs to restructure urgently, downsize, restructure, and offer the services to the small farmer that they can, such as providing fuel, providing fertilizers and chemicals, tractor services, and ensuring that they do get the work permits for the seasonal workers that we get. And that's about it that they can be doing right now. They don't have the wherewithal to do anything else. The bigger farmers are running well, and what we in the ministry would really like to see, and we told them this, is to try and unite the industry back and bring them back together so that we can move forward as one industry.
To what point does the government assist financially?
Well, it depends upon what we will assist financially with. I mean, duty-free fuel and so, that's a financial assistance for sure. But actually, if you talk about injecting cash in there, that's not going to happen.
Plantation white sugar can replace refined sugar. This is according to the Caribbean Development Bank, which funded a technical study on the issue. CARICOM ministerial meetings were held a few weeks ago in Belize, and participating ministers discussed the matter extensively and reviewed the CDB's findings. The report is seen as a win for Belize, which is considered the leading producer of plantation white sugar, accounting for nearly all of the region's output. But according to Agriculture Minister Godwin Holtz, CARICOM's Council for Trade and Economic Development will make a final decision when it meets in November.
The most significant one was to engage the fact that refined white sugar should be on the list of non-automatic exemptions, meaning that if you want to bring refined white sugar into the region, then you have to apply for a waiver. And if you don't apply for a waiver, you pay the duty. That is the issue. And so now those 3 proposals have been furthered from the coated agriculture up to the coated trade, which is to meet in sometime in November. And it is that body that gives the final approval, and we are hoping that happens. We should be able to trade this commodity freely within the region, and we're supposed to be able to protect it within the region. BSI, ASR, as you know, has upped their game tremendously. I mean, you're not too young to remember when you saw a bag of silo in the sugar, and leave lumpy. The sugar now is, I mean, they know refined sugar better than the sugar, so please.
The rains are here, but the effects of the drought that devastated crops over several weeks are still being felt. The prolonged drought caused losses in the millions for farmers across the country. The government is committed to financially assist farmers, providing alleviations so that they can bounce back. Farmers will be afforded low-interest loans, but the ministry is having challenges in formalizing a list of farmers. Minister of Agriculture Godwin Holtz says that the list needs to clean from persons who are not truly farmers.
We got our first $200,000 finally from the banks that is available to us, and as I speak, Jose Alpuche, my CEO, as I'm speaking right now, he's in Washington finalizing the World Bank's issue. So I can't comment on that yet. He has to brief me sometime this evening or tomorrow. But we are moving quite a pace. One of the things we didn't do was we wanted to finalize sugar. And as you heard, we had sugar not completely with all the farmers registered. We're trying to finalize that before we can say, this is the package, this is the farmers, and anybody who's not on the list is left off. We had, and there's nothing to hide. We had, when we were looking at the list of all the farmers that we had registered, there were a few farmers, I think about 80 across the country, that there was issues whether in fact they were farmers, really farmers, or not farmers, or associate farmers, or adjunct farmers as we call them. We needed to clean that up too, so that when that list goes out there, we don't have people coming and say, well, they may overlook me and I wasn't a farmer, that kind of thing. So that delayed us a little bit.
A retired U.S. national who in mid-September is now illegal in Belize. 50-year-old Edward Francis Kilgore III appeared before Senior Magistrate Tricia Pitt Anderson to answer to a charge of failure to comply with the conditions of his visitor's permit when he failed to produce his documents to the immigration officer on demand on Thursday. He pleaded guilty to the offense, was fined $1,000 and spared jail time. Kilgore's attorney told the court that he is suffering from a chronic illness and has a special diet. His attorney also sought and obtained the court's permission to have Kilgore stay with a family until his next court date a week from today on Friday. The U.S. Embassy is assisting with his travel documents, and Kilgore says he wants to leave ASAP. A formal ceremony took place at the Supreme Court this morning. Allison Courtney, who is the youngest member of a family of distinguished attorneys, was called to the bar to legally practice the profession. Family, friends, and colleagues came out to support the newly minted lawyer. Ali will, of course, practice at the law firm of Courtney Koi, where she joins her father, senior counsel Eamon Courtney, her mother Denise, and sibling Gavin. Here is Isani Caetano with the story.
Another promising young attorney was called to the bar this morning, rounding out a prominent family of lawyers. Allison Courtney, daughter of senior counsel Eamon Courtney and his wife Denise, officially joined the profession today after being inducted by Chief Justice Kenneth Benjamin. There to witness it all were family and friends, as well as fellow members of the Bar Association.
Strangely enough, growing up, my parents never spoke about law, so it's really a new journey for me, and I think that now I feel the pressure, but growing up I didn't. But I also think of it positively, as I have the best mentors, I have the best team, I have the best support system around me. So I didn't have too much pressure. I just, it just was kind of in me to do this.
Her accomplishment as the youngest lawyer in a family that is distinguished in the legal profession certainly makes her father proud.
As you can expect, I'm a very proud parent. Denise and I are really thrilled that Allison succeeded, and she did so well. She excelled academically, and she is truly committed to Belize and to the practice of law. We at the firm welcome her to the firm, and I look forward to hearing and seeing her in court and fighting the good fight.
If left up to Ali, she'd much rather be behind the scenes at Courtney Koi, where both parents and her older sibling practice. Her father's expectations, nonetheless, are duly noted.
I'm a bit too young just to choose what I want to do. So at this time, I'll just be taking whatever work they give me. I know what I prefer. I know I prefer transactional work. But I think my father will ultimately force me to get into litigation at some point. But I'm open to anything at this point.
Reporting for News 5, I am Isani Cayetano.
After the break, there is a focus on cultural immersion to continue to grow the tourism industry. Tourism numbers in the past 3 years have been showing double-digit growth, signaling that Belize is a top destination. Today, the Belize Tourism Board held a conference with the theme Destination Marketing and its Impact on Belize. While the jewel is known for beach and sand, the conference is focusing on cultural immersion trends that allow visitors and travelers to experience the uniqueness of Belize's food, music, and culture. News 5, Dwayne Moody reports.
The Belize Tourism Board held its annual tourism conference today at the Biltmore Plaza in Belize City. The event, which brings together industry stakeholders and international experts under one roof, provides a space for dialogue on the trends and markets to interest not only the tourists, but the traveler. It serves as an opportunity to look at where the tourism industry is and where it is going.
We're focusing a little bit more on some of the challenges that the industry faces. There's a panelist speaking about the sargassum issue. We have crime and security and a few others.
Where are we right now in terms of the industry? Is it where it's supposed to be?
We are definitely headed in the right direction. Last year we experienced the third consecutive year of double-digit growth. I think we've definitely done a really good job of creating that awareness of Belize. People know where Belize is. They've either been here, they know somebody who's been here, they have it on their bucket list to come. I think our work will continue to focus now on making that conversion. You know where it is, but now we want to actually get you here. So we want to continue working towards increasing visitor arrivals as well as increasing their time in country and their spend while here.
This year, the theme is Destination Marketing and its Impact on Belize. There is a specific focus on the cultural experience in the country. One of the panel discussions was on cultural immersion trends. Keynote speaker was Stephanie Jones, the CEO and president of the Cultural Heritage Alliance for Tourism Incorporated, located in the U.S. She says that stakeholders must be able to distinguish the difference between a tourist and a traveler.
A tourist, they typically want a more planned out experience that provides more convenience and comfort, where a traveler, they want to get on the local bus and go live it up and mix it up with the local people and have dinner with the locals and go to the countryside and explore the jungles, or they want those immersive experiences. Cultural immersion is really about the people, because we're all cultural beings, and it's about the destination and how they go about engaging their local community assets to provide these local cultural immersion experiences to tourists when they're visiting a destination. Tourists want to have these local engagement and immersive experiences with local people. They want to be engaged in the culture through the food, through the music, through the dance, through the art, and just local exchanges, because it just makes the experience so much more memorable when you're traveling, and you also get to learn about a destination from a local perspective.
So what kinds of programs are in place for stakeholders to ensure that the visitor experience is reflective of Belizean culture, food, and the like? The Belize Tourism Board, through its Quality Assurance Department, has worked with grassroots persons and other stakeholders to make sure that the interactions with tourists are authentic and a great representation of Belize.
I think we're well on our way. Our first speaker this morning, Stephanie Jones, said it herself. Belize is definitely a model for other destinations. We really honed in on the fact that one of the unique things about the destination is all of the culture that pervades the industry. And I think now it's working towards letting not just industry stakeholders, but the general population, to create a wider awareness that everybody has a role to play in that cultural experience for a visitor.
Between Moody for News 5.
A third tranche of money from the Cultural Development Fund of the National Institute of Culture and History was dispersed today at the Bliss Center for the Performing Arts. The fund was created to assist those who work in preserving the tangible and intangible culture of Belize. Today, 14 persons and organizations received checks totaling $27,000 to help with their individual projects. News 5's Dwayne Moody reports.
$27,000 in grants were split between some 14 organizations and persons in the third cycle of the Cultural Development Fund. The fund was launched by the National Institute of Culture and History in June. Then in July of this year, $25,000 was issued. The initiative provides microfinancing and other support to persons in the creative and cultural industries.
How happy I am to be a part of this event this afternoon that will see so many more of our groups or individuals receive from the Cultural Development Fund. It was a while ago, earlier this year, that we launched the Cultural Development Fund, and I think this is it's our second ceremony for distribution of checks. But if you remember, when we launched, we also did some distribution then, so it's more accurately our third round of distribution. And just by way of reminders, in June, which is the second round of distribution, we had a Pocketuck team receiving, we had the Chocolate Festival, and we had the National Garifuna Council. And then, that was the first. And then the second, in July, at the end of July, we had 13 recipients. And we had people from the music video genre, we had theater, we had animated film, we had music development, we had concerts for local performers, we had pageantry, we had Emancipation Day, and the recipients at that time were UBAD, Miss Universe, Square Peg Players, the Library, National Library Service, Miss East Indian, and Tekwani and Duende, which I'm understanding is the highlight of the National Film Festival that will come up in early next month, November.
35 applications were submitted, 14 of which were awarded today. The process of selection is reviewed by a selection committee and works with the preservation of the tangible and intangible culture in Belize.
This Cultural Development Fund, I think it's a very, very good concept. I like the way the process that we do to get to the end point where we can give out the funds. It helps that everyone can fill out a form, state their objectives, state what they want to do, and then it is reviewed. And it is reviewed, I should say, without bias, because I'm part of the review. And if you can tell, there's none in here that says archaeology. There's no one here that does archaeology. That means no one here got a grant for archaeology. I only say that in tongue-in-cheek, but hopefully, somewhere along the line, people in archaeology, the ones who are tour guides, tour operators, craftspeople who deal with the tourism industry or who make replicas and so, can apply for these funds too.
Dwayne Moody for News 5.
When we come back, the fight against hunger takes center stage at activities to mark World Food Day.
With over 100 Historia sin rincón. Ni tu amigo, ni tu amante, ni tu perro, ni tu hombre.
Que coma mucho cuzuco,
así como su papá,
pa' que sea un buen cemental,
así como su papá,
y que coma mucho garrobo pa' poderlo
me va, me va, me va, me va, me va. Hacer amigos, andar caminos, me va, me va.
Si tú no estás junto a mí, no puedo cantar.
Remember, voting ends on Sunday at midnight. KTV Latino Season 4. It's hot, it's live, and it's only on 5.
Today, Belize joined the international community in celebrating World Food Day. This year, the Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO, is focusing on the importance of healthy diets in tackling global hunger. The organization has highlighted an urgent need to ensure healthy and sustainable diets are both affordable and accessible to all. This year's activities were held at Ladyville Technical School, where Agriculture Minister Godwin Holtz was the keynote speaker.
What we set out to do on World Food Day is to create awareness of healthy living. Basically, that is it. And as you know, there is a Belize Parliamentary Alliance, which was part of a worldwide movement, because the focus now, in keeping with the United Nations mandate, is to ensure that by the year 2025 and by 2030 for sure, we have reduced significantly hunger, definitely malnutrition, and we begin to focus more on the human being and his well-being.
A matter of great relevance in the quest to eradicate hunger is the transformation of our food systems. The 2030 Agenda requires inclusive, efficient, and responsible agri-food systems that integrate production, sustainable value chains to ensure the supply of adequate, affordable, and healthy food. Given FAO's mandate and expertise, we are ready to play a central role in the field of food and agriculture.
Earlier in the month, we reported on a hasty land transaction that raised several eyebrows. The Belmopan City Council de-reserved a large portion of land that had been designated for the expansion of the Queen Elizabeth II Boulevard. 28 residential lots were surveyed and sold off to new owners for a paltry sum. The price tag for a single residential lot is $1,000. Documents show that two persons, Christy Lynn Holtz and Vanessa Holtz, bought lots separately, and the assertion is that these two individuals are close relatives of Minister Godwin Holtz.
Absolutely no pick me of mine. Absolutely no, not at all. A lot of Holtz there. And all the Holtz in this country are relatives, but no close relative of mine. And I heard the same story that you heard. I wouldn't know where the land is. I wouldn't know anything about it at all.
The one-day purchase and sale of that piece of that plots, is that a regular?
I don't know. I understand that it was the city council that sold their land, and I haven't dealt into it at all. But if you're talking about processing things in one day, that could happen in one day. It's not normally always happen, but it can. It's a simple process when you sell private land, you know.
Coming up after the break, on the occasion of World Standards Day, the media looks closely at video production.
Do more this October with our Spooktacular
report with a global perspective.
Today, the Belize Bureau of Standards held a session about standards for video. The event was held in light of World Standards Day 2019 under the theme, Video Standards Create a Global Stage. Each year on October 14th, global standard-setting bodies such as the International Organization for Standardization celebrate World Standards Day to pay tribute to the work of experts worldwide who develop the voluntary technical agreements that are published as international standards. Channel 5 joined 2 other local TV stations to discuss video and standards in the Belizean context. Reporter Andrea Polanco was there and files this report.
Video is a powerful and engaging way to communicate, and these days it is easier than ever to create a video. With technology, it takes only seconds and a click of a button to create a video. And this innovation has led to significant changes in the quality of videos we create and share, and also how videos are accessed. The standards also help to ensure that videos can be used and accessed on any device in any part of the world. And no one knows this more than the news business in Belize. Today, technology has changed the way we are recording and broadcasting to the rest of the world. And that has required local television stations to change the way they operate since a TV broadcast started decades ago. The Belize Bureau of Standards, in commemoration of World Standards Day 2019, held under the theme, Video Standards Create a Global Stage, invited local TV news stations to talk about how global video standards have helped them over the years. Production manager at Channel 5, Rick Romero, gave a brief history lesson on how News 5 has evolved.
We've basically come from recording video on VHS to recording video on a memory card. The leap from, I guess, from the 80s to now, it's been very wide. If you notice the quality, for example, the first example that I have wasn't all that great. VHS wasn't a very high quality medium. You notice you have dropouts, which are little lines at the top. The videos are a very sharp video. So this is from the 80s. So this is a pneumatic tape. So it went from VHS, which is very half-inch in terms of the width, to 3/4 inch pneumatic. So that means that the video was recorded on a wider tape. To do news, we couldn't carry these tapes around and do our reporting. So we went to another format, and that format was the high 8 format. High 8 was 8 stands for 8 millimeters, so it went from 3/4 to 8 millimeter in tape width. It was until 2006 that we made another change in our recording, which was a format called DVCAM. Now digital, it's called Digicam, D for digital. Digital video came into existence, right, for us. Again, the quality of DVCAM was much better than the high 8. It wasn't until 2013 that we changed from DVCAM, which was this cassette here, and we started shooting digitally. We're still using video standard definition, I mean to say, which is 640 by 480 video frame, as opposed to HD, which is much more bigger. So we started with this format, the standard, from since then, and up to now we're still using it, which means that we still have ways to go in terms of transmitting in HD and digital.
And while TV news stations have made small changes over the last 30 years, not much has changed. Belize is still lagging behind when it comes to meeting international video broadcasting standards. While some local users and producers of video content have made the switch and are transmitting in purely high definition, many of the video content producers in Belize are yet to catch up to the global standards.
We have no standard. To say that we are still at 480, and that's the truth,
it is, and that's where we started out at, if us in 1982, transmitting in 1982 in 480, and in 2019 we're still at 480. It is a complete reflection on the absolute failure of the Belize Broadcasting Authority, of which I am a member. But it is really the understanding that there is a breakdown in the regulatory system. There is no regulator really for broadcasting to set standards. We, Belize, should have done a digital switchover a long time ago, or at least 10 years ago, or started it 5 years ago. What do I mean by a digital switchover? We should have stopped transmitting in analog. It really is a problem, and it is indicative of the fact that the standard has overtaken us and left us in the ash bin of history with this old NTSC 525 lines standard. That's what we use. So it really is a failure of regulation and of the Broadcasting Authority, which is only really advisory. The problem is you need a department, a government department in charge of implementation. The Broadcasting Authority is the closest thing we have to a regulator, but they only exist to advise the minister.
And so if the Broadcasting Authority doesn't have the teeth to set regulations and guide the implementation of video standards, it's left to be seen how the local TV news media will meet that global shift. And as Rodolfo Gutierrez of the Belize Bureau of Standards explains, standards are important in whichever industry you operate, but the BBS can only assist to develop those standards for the TV news media based on what is required.
The situation of the media houses still transmitting in analog fashion is certainly a point of concern, because at the end of the day, everything has already transitioned from one type of technology to the other. So by probably promoting that, but again, there is another constraint, which is basically the distribution aspect of it, or basically accessibility to a lot of people that do not own the technology or the type of televisions to basically see digital footage that can pose a problem. The role as a Bureau of Standards will be basically to be able to facilitate. Once that regulator is in place, then we will be able to ensure that whenever they require standards to make the particular transitions, we can be able to facilitate that type of process. Okay.
So at this time, there is nothing that the Bureau of Standards can do to help regulate the standards that we use or we have in the media?
No, because we will work we develop standards according to what are the requests that are done, or that may be private or public need. So until the entity that requires the standard basically wants it, then we will be able to intervene and be able to facilitate that developmental process. If you follow a standard from the very beginning, you allow yourself to become competitive, be able to enter that market where there are other producers that are already following standards. So if you want to survive, it's not an expense, it's really an investment on a long-term basis for you to be able to be profitable at the ending of the day. And then at the ending of the day, also be compliant to whatever standards are out there. Again, standards are voluntary. They're not mandatory unless it's a regulation. But in terms of different standards for different products or processes, it's always voluntary. So it's up to you. If you want to get into the market and keep alive, then standards is the way to go.
Reporting for News 5, I'm Andrea Polanco.
And that's the news. Don't forget that tonight's broadcast is available in both text and streaming video at channel5belize.com. You can also connect with us on our Facebook page at facebook.com/News5Live. I'm Charlie Hutchinson. Thanks for joining us. And from all of us here at News 5, good night.